there's a whole world of talking about this stuff. Um, and it blows students' minds, especially when I start talking about things like what would a citrusy sound be like? Like, what if your sound was more like an orange? And they're like, it's like, yeah, it's like bright, it's effervescent, it's a little bit sharp. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's yeah, talking about wine or talking about craft beer. I mean, it's yeah, it's fascinating. I think with all things, with music especially, I think people sometimes struggle describing things. Um, yeah, I mean, legitimately though, it's like, can it be a little bit more floral? And it's like, immediately, it's a little less heavy-handed in my mind. It's a little less intense. The lines are a little less intense. The shaping's a little less intense. Might play it a little faster so it can move a little. It's like, could this section be a little spicier? Could it be a little bit more, you know, if we're making a stew, I want more meaty chunks in the stew. I want it to be a little less tomato soup and a little more, you know, Italian wedding. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a huge difference between those things. Um, and yeah, it's a weird way of thinking about it, but like as you know, doing art, it's like um, describing things with words is incredibly challenging for musicians. And that's one of those things is it's amazing having taught higher ed for well, obviously I'm not doing it now, but I taught higher ed for like 7 or 8 years at a professor level. Um, Students don't know how to talk about what they're doing. That's a fascinating conundrum that we can't even quantify what we're trying. They can't quantify what they're trying to do. How can you do something when you can't even conceptualize it? And it's like some students will say, "Oh, it's not that I can't conceptualize it. I just can't describe it to you with words." And it's like, "Okay, tell me how your conceptualization." But yeah, describing describing anything is tough, and I feel like a lot of people try to do it in terms of um, comparing it to other things. Um, like because of course everybody's frame of reference for art is art they're already familiar with. So again, it's hard because when you're in the space of the artist, you need to kind of dictate the terms, but you can't always do that based on the influences of other people. So at some point, you really need to be able to quantify and describe what you're doing in a concrete way. And once you're in a really educated spot with art, you can start talking about influences like this. This is an impressionist, this is a renaissance, this is it has elements of this. You can typify styles, but still in the most like basic description of things, especially in abstract things. I guess it applies less to programmatic music. I don't know if you describe art the same way as like being programmatic. When we talk about a programmatic piece, we're talking about like 1812 overture. It's very clearly, the French and the Russians, and you can hear both the national anthems, and there's cannons, and it's clearly the two of them duking it out. And Russia very clearly wins in the end because ba 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 is a very famous patriotic Russian hymn that most people don't actually know that. Which again, it's weird when you get down into it because that means 1812 is a piece celebrating Russian culture, and we play it every 4th of July in America. Think about that one for a second. Um, but yeah, flavors. Flavors is the name of the game. Flavors and vibes.